The greatest console of all time. That's a topic that's been debated for decades now. Some say it's the Super Nintendo with its timeless pixel art and incredible games, the console that really cemented gaming in the living room. Others claim it's the Switch with its huge library and flexible handheld design. But for most of us, when it really comes down to it, there's only one deserving of that crown. Today we're going back to a time before greed overshadowed creativity, back when game development felt like a playground for people who actually loved video games. The golden age, the 6th generation. Let's go, boys. Back in 1991, an intended collaboration between Sony and Nintendo fell through due to disagreements over technology and Nintendo's insistence on gobbling up profits. Some things never change, eh? Sony said CD-ROM was the future. Nintendo stuck to cartridges, and thus the partnership dissolved. Sony then basically said what most of us still say today. Fuck Nintendo. The PlayStation was Sony's entry into the console market, betting heavily on CD-ROM technology. A bet that paid off big time. Sony spanked Nintendo so hard, they ended up on a different generational timeline entirely, functionally bowing out of the traditional console wars that PlayStation and Microsoft would fight from then on. The stage was then set for Sony in the 6th generation, and everyone was anxious to see what they'd do next. But the PlayStation 2 didn't just meet expectations, it obliterated them. It shattered records so hard that it's still the #1 selling console of all time. That combination of a built-in DVD player plus the next-gen gaming console right as DVD was replacing VHS, and it was cheaper than standalone DVD players at the time. It was literally a no-brainer even if you weren't a gamer. Mass adoption of the console led to some of the greatest first and third-party support we will probably ever see. Now that's all fine, but we're going into 2026, man. Why on earth would I recommend one of these dusty old boys to you today? Well, a quick note before we get into it. This is aimed at people who want the physical console experience. PS2 emulation is solid, and obviously it's the ultimate budget option, but some of us want that tactile console experience, and the sickest of the sickos like myself will be playing on a CRT via component cables. Regardless of how you choose to revisit the PS2, be it physical discs, a modded console, or emulation, we're all winners today because the thing that ultimately makes the PS2 the greatest of all time is its extraordinarily deep library of games. The PS2 holds the world record for the most unique physical titles ever released for a single console, and with the industry's shift to digital, it'll probably hold that title forever. You can claim consoles like the Switch have more games if you're an idiot, but we're not counting the 5,000 digital hentai puzzle games being vomited onto the barely functional eShop. If you weren't around for the 6th generation, man, what a time to be alive. This was the Wild West of game development. Companies were willing to take risks all the time because games were quick and relatively cheap to make. If you had a good idea and some extra cash, you could throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. The PS2 emerged from the awkward early 3D phase of the PS1, a console that walked so the PS2 could run. Suddenly, the limits on what a game could be started to fade. You had more powerful hardware, DVD storage capacity, and a decade of industry experience let developers make passion projects that millions would end up loving. This is where we saw the birth of iconic franchises like God of War, Kingdom Hearts, Ratchet and Clank, Devil May Cry, Jak and Daxter, Monster Hunter, Yakuza, Katamari, Sly Cooper, you get it. All fresh ideas that became all-time classics, and that list feels like it could go on forever. Nowadays it feels like all we see are remakes, reboots, and remasters, the corporate machine still siphoning money from this era. And those are often good, don't get me wrong. The modern games can be great, but the PS2 era was fertile ground for brand new ideas and a gold mine of actual, true hidden gems back when the term had meaning. Every gamer deserves to experience it. With over 160 million units sold, these consoles are literally everywhere. It's probably still your parents' DVD player in their basement. I bought a bundle of 3 broken ones on eBay for about $20 to $25 each, and then I fixed them, modded them, and sold them to friends, and the difference actually paid for my PS2 and the entire modding process. That's obviously not realistic for everybody, but we'll cover your options if you're looking to get into a PS2 a bit later in the video, so stay tuned. Many of the games are also really cheap too. You can build a solid collection for not a whole lot of money, but if your tastes lean into the horror and RPG genres, those can be a little bit more expensive, and this kind of leads us to the great divide in your PS2 journey. Do you want to go with physical collecting, or do you want to go with a modded console? Now you can do both, but let's be real, if you've modded your PS2, the physical collecting aspect loses a little bit of its luster. Now I personally have a modded PS2 with a 1TB hard drive, and the games on it would easily total over $1,000 physically. Now obviously I definitely do own all of these games physically, and I definitely ripped them in the most legal manner possible to the hard drive. I'd show you my physical collection, but bummer, it's just out of frame and I just can't be bothered to move the camera. Sorry about that. At the end of the day, the real reason to get into the PlayStation 2 is nostalgia. Hooking up a fully analog console to an old tube TV and ripping through Tony Hawk levels or diving into the hundreds of amazing JRPGs, there's just nothing like it, man. Now modern TVs are fine too if you don't want to be crazy like me and get a CRT. Just make sure you've got the right inputs and maybe invest in a RetroTink or another comparable scaler. Unlike modern gaming, where we just can't seem to help but stress about the frame rate and the graphical settings and should I buy the battle pass, this is gaming distilled down to its purest form. And whether you're revisiting it like an old friend or experiencing it for the first time, this era has a warmth that nothing before or after ever replicated. This really is the ultimate gaming machine. Alright, let's say I've piqued your interest and you want to get into the PS2. Where should you start? Which one should you buy? Well, know in advance, they're all pretty old, so there's always a risk of hardware failure regardless of what you're purchasing, but in a sea of options, only one really stands above the rest in my opinion, and that's the SCPH 3900X series. These fat models tend to have the most reliable power supplies and lasers, and they tend to last the longest in my experience. The fat PS2s are also the easiest to mod. If you want a solid option that also doubles as a DVD player that can use a remote, the SCPH 5000 models include an infrared receiver for remotes. Just know that there were some reports that they sometimes have laser coil and motor issues that can cause problems. Personally, I don't generally recommend the slim models. Some people love them, they're fine, but later slims lose some of that PS1 compatibility, and they're also known to run hot, and sometimes reports said they scratched discs. If you already have one, that's great. If it's working, no problem. But if you're buying in for the first time, my recommendation is that the 3900X is the safest and often still the cheapest bet. If you want to identify the console, you can find the model number on the back label. Ask sellers to show it to you before buying, and expect to pay around $90 shipped for a fat PS2 with a controller that's been refurbished and is in solid condition. The modding process usually cost me around $150 total. You should check out Blaine's video here for a full guide, it makes it really easy. I talk about a lot of awesome retro games and consoles on this channel, and while opinions may vary, I personally don't think anything will ever dethrone the PS2 as the ultimate nostalgic retro gaming machine. There's just a warmth to this era that hits just as hard for newcomers as it does for the OGs coming back to it. I highly recommend diving into the PS2 library this winter, however you choose to do it, but I'll die on the hill that a physical console hooked to a CRT is best. I'm entering my grumpy old man yelling at clouds phase on that one. If you liked this video, check out the playlist of other console reviews I've done, and stay tuned for more like this one soon. Thanks for stopping by.